In an extension of iTunes, so right below the type, let's add conformance to the endpoint protocol. Extension iTunes endpoint. The first bit of information we need to provide is the base URL as a string. And this is easy since it is a fixed value. So we'll say base, and we'll return https://itunes.apple.com. The next part is the path. The path depends on the endpoint that we're currently working with. But since we've defined each endpoint as an enum member, we can easily switch on the value and provide the correct path based on the endpoint we're on. So for example, we can say var path, this is of type string, and we'll switch on self. Right now we only have one case, so we can say case.search, and I don't need the associated values here. I'll just say return /search. Since we're switching on self, anytime we add another endpoint to the enum, we're going to get a compiler error indicating that we're not returning paths for all the relevant endpoints. So type safety for the win. Make sure you don't omit this / here at the start of the path because you won't get a valid URL if you do that. The last bit to get this to work is the query items property. The query items array is going to contain all the parameters we want to specify in the URL, listed as key value pairs with equal signs separated by ampersands. In our iTunes enum, any parameters we want to include are specified as associated values in the enum members. Right now, we don't have all the parameters we need, but let's get some basic logic in here. We're going to switch on self in here like we did with the path so that we return different arrays based on the endpoints we're using. So first switch on self, and then we'll say case.search, and we'll assign the associated values to local constants. So we'll say let term and let media. To start, let's create an empty array of URL query items so that we can return it and silence the errors. So we'll say var result equal. This is an array of URL query item, and we'll go ahead and return it. The first parameter we're going to add to this array is the search term. This is super easy. URL query item takes a key as a string and a value, so we'll create an instance and add it to the array. Let search term item equal URL query item, and we'll use the initializer that takes a name, and the name here is the parameter name, which is term, and the value is the associated value we're passing through as a string, term. Now we can append this to the array by saying result.append search term item. Since the media associated value is an optional one, we'll first check to see if a media is specified. So if let media equal media, and then we'll go ahead and create and append a query item. So we'll say let media item equal URL query item. Again, this takes a name, which is media. And for the value, we'll say media.description. Now that we have a media query item, we can add it to our array. Okay, let's test this out. Let's see if we've done everything right so far. And a simple way to do this is to go to viewcontroller.swift, which is our first file that we load when the app starts up. And inside view.did_load, let's go ahead and create a search endpoint. So we'll say let endpoint equal iTunes.search, and the term here is Taylor Swift, and the media type is .music. And then once we've created it, to see if we've done everything correctly, we'll print out the endpoint's generated request. Run it, and if you did everything correctly, in the console, you should see a perfectly formatted URL. So mine is right here. There we go. So you'll see that we have the correct base, the right path, then we have a question mark, and then each parameter is listed as a key value pair with an equal sign in between, and they're separated by ampersands. You'll notice that the space over here got percent encoded to a %20. Awesome. We're not there yet, though. We still need to define a few more parameters and another endpoint. Let's take a break here, and when you get back, we'll enhance the iTunes enum to model the entirety of the search API.